during this whole coronavirus, COVID-19 quarantine mitigation measure lockdown, a lot of people are understandably upset. A lot of people are upset about the lockdown because most people live their lives check to check. They live their lives getting that check every single month. And so I understand why they are so angry, because their financial survival is really on the line in this whole phenomena that we are enduring. So at the same time, I understand why we need isolation, because we need to have enough social distancing in order to curtail the spread of this very deadly virus. So I completely understand. It's a very, very difficult situation. It's a situation in which you really can't have good or bad. It's really bad or worse. And that is the predicament, the difficult predicament of this whole situation. Here's one thing that is an enigma to me, and that is that Catholics are more upset about the quarantine lockdown because they can't, get to church, than they have been about the predatorial priests that have inundated the churches for decades. I remember years ago telling people about particular priests who are predators. And I would receive more anger from Catholics because I would be exposing these priests than anyone else. And one thing that I have noticed is that Catholics will show rage against those who expose their priests for being predators. And they have been more angry about this quarantine lockdown than they have been about all of the priests who have been predators for decades. All of these decades, we have had predator priests. And we have now a lockdown because we're in the midst of a deadly pandemic, and so churches have to be closed down, and they're more angry about the churches being closed down in order to protect people from getting infected than they have been in all of these decades in which priests have been in their masses, have been, conducting their masses, while at the same time being predators. It really is an enigma, and it really is disturbing to see this. But it's not really surprising, because I have seen this so many times. When I first entered the church, and this is really the cause of the crisis of faith that we have been seeing for a long time now. When I first entered the church in 2013, I met with a priest by the name of Father Robert L. Kinsel. And this guy was very, very good at talking. He was theologically very educated. But I remember Googling his name and found out that he, in fact, protected a pedophile priest by the name of Robert Hirdlicka. And Robert Hirdlicka was found guilty of pedophilia, and he was thrown in prison for a number of years. And before he was, put behind bars, Father Robert Kinsel told the authorities, begged the authorities to please put Father Hirdlicka in one of the Catholic treatment centers so that he doesn't go to prison. Kinsel was trying to protect this pedophile. I exposed Kinsel, and of course, you have Catholics who get pissed off about this. And then I did something in late 2014 that really enraged Catholics. I met with a priest by the name of Monsignor Michael Yarbrough, and he goes by different spelling, which is very suspicious. He goes either by Yarbrough or Yarborough. Regardless, Monsignor Yarbrough, a number of years ago, he sexually accosted a young man. And he groped this young man and kissed him, forced a kiss right on him. And the young man reported him, and of course, Yarbrough said, oh, he told the bishop, he said, oh, kissing a guy, it's part of my culture. Yeah, your last name is Yarbrough. What freaking culture do you come from that does that? But anyway, I met with this guy, and he told me, if you ever want to talk to me as a priest, give me a call. And I Googled Yarbrough's name, and I found the story. I found the story that, reported that he sexually accosted this young man. And so I decided to confront Yarbrough, and I told him off on film, and I said, you are a pervert, you're a predator, you are evil, you are a heretic. And I received so much hatred for doing that. I received so much hatred for exposing this guy and for confronting him. I had Catholics telling me that Yarbrough has done more for this world than you ever will in your whole entire life. I had one guy say that he would have beaten me up if he were there because I confronted Yarbrough in his own church. And even Michael Voris refused to put the video on his show because I was in a church when I did the confrontation. And I would tell people, hey, didn't Jesus go into the temple with a whip? And didn't he beat up people who were defiling his Father's house? Well, that's different because it was the Passover. The Passover was the most holiest holiday for the Jews. The Mass is the central point of the entire Catholic faith. What the hell are you people talking about? But I received so much hatred for this. I received so much anger. And then I remember not confronting, but I remember exposing Milo Yiannopoulos. I remember exposing Michael Voris, and because Michael Voris was doing things with Yiannopoulos, Milo Yiannopoulos, and there was one interview in which Boris was talking with Milo, and Milo basically said that he's okay with the marriage age being, I think it was 16, and Boris was like, yeah, and then Church Militant's website put an interview with Milo on their site, and they said that, we and Milo, we both agree on the teachings of the church, and that's obviously false because Milo has promoted pederastry several times. And so I remember exposing Voris, exposing all these people, and just receiving hatred from Catholics. And they get so angry when you expose their priests. And I remember confronting Yarbrough to his face. And I remember going into his church and filming him and confronting him, showing my face to him. And I remember the ushers cornering me and telling me that I had to leave. And I remember telling the ushers, hey, this guy is a pederast. This guy is a predator. He preys on young men. And I remember one usher saying, I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't want to hear about any of that stuff. And so one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of Catholics, they've put like a dam in their minds. They prevent the rivers of knowledge from entering their consciousness. And when it's their priest who is the pederast, when it's their priest who is the predator, they get upset when you expose them. But if the government says, hey, you can't go to church because we have an epidemic in our hands, and we're trying to curtail the spread of this virus, all of a sudden they get angry. And this to me is, it's disturbing to me. Because it's like, well, we have a virus, and if you got a bunch of people going to church, they're going to get infected and people will die. Oh, we got to go to Mass. But if I say, hey, this priest in your Mass is a pederast, oh, that's fine. Father's a good man. He's a good man. He's a holy man. Don't expose Father. Just do your rosary 6 million times and everything will be okay. So it's like, well, who really cares about the Mass? Because if you don't care about people getting infected and dying because you guys wanted to go to Mass, and at the same time you don't care if there's a priest who is directing your Mass who is a predator, what does that say about you? Who really cares about the sanctity of the Mass? Who really cares about the sanctity of the church? Because you have these people who are like, oh, they're defiling our church with this whole thing with corruption. These Novus Ordo priests are all corrupt. But at the same time, if you find out that your priest is a predator, you will defend him. So instead of being so upset about your masses being put on hold, why don't you guys get upset about the fact that predators are running your masses? That, to me, is the most dangerous virus. Anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this message. Hope you guys have learned something from this message. You guys just heard some theology. God bless.